Welcome to the Platform Pulse, the first installment of our new quarterly product series where we are going behind the scenes with the Applitools product team. My name is Heather Brasillo and I will be your host for today's session, but I'm also joined by two of my colleagues. You'll see Adam Carmi and Paz Yanover here. Adam is our CTO and co-founder here at Applitools, and he brings over 20 years of leadership and innovation experience. And before founding Applitools, he actually held senior R&D roles at companies like SafeEnd, IBM, Microsoft, and Intel. And then Paz is our new VP of product, and he brings a lot of deep experience across AI, developer platforms, and enterprise testing. And he's already helping to shape the next evolution of the Applitools platform. So just a few quick housekeeping notes before we jump in. First, yes, this webinar is being recorded and we'll share the on-demand link with all registrants tomorrow. If you have any questions during the session, please drop them in the Q&A tab so that we can get to as many as possible during the time we have together. And while you're there, also make sure you check out the polls tab. We'd love to learn more about your current challenges and what you're seeing. And if you run into any technical issues, do feel free to message Pam Morgan, our event organizer, and she'll be happy to help you out. All right, that being said, we are ready to go ahead and get started. And what we're going to be talking through today is first, we're just going to introduce everyone to our wonderful product team. After that, we'll start covering what's new in our recent release of Autonomous. And following that, we'll be covering what's coming next on our roadmap. And afterward, we'll have time to answer any questions that you all may have had. So at this point, I'm going to hand the mic over to Paz so that he can introduce the product team.
So hi, everyone. I'm very happy and excited to join Applitools and to be part of this community. I truly believe in the importance and power of the community. And so as we at Applitools, we can create great tools and advanced capabilities, but we still need your assistance for that. Your feedback, your comments are highly appreciated and will help us to shape the future of the end-to-end testing and create the best tools for all of us. So I'll be more than happy to connect with each one of you and get your thoughts and get your insights. So feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email on my email at paz.yanover@applitools.com. I'll be happy to hear from you. I would like to use this opportunity, as I have stated, to introduce our talented team. So we have Alona. Alona is the product manager for the Eyes product. She has been driving innovation in Eyes for, I think, for over 4 years, and she's behind many of its powerful features. When Alona is not building great products, she's either out running or sketching. Nice. Ronita leads the Autonomous product. She's the mind behind its most innovative capabilities. And outside work, you can find her on the tennis court or watching EuroLeague games like she's coaching from the sidelines. Ran is another another member in the team. He also works on the Autonomous product with a focus on mobile apps. He has a deep experience in building tools for native mobile testing. And his perfect morning includes sunrise, a surfboard, and salt water. Justin, the last member in the team. Justin owns our SDKs, Execution Cloud, and Ultra-Fast Grid. He is a technical powerhouse with a strong background in software development as well as QA. When he's not debugging or building features, you can find Justin outside fishing. So Alona, Ranit, Ran, and Justin are very experienced and smart, and mostly enthusiastic about testing and about creating innovative products for you, for the community. So let's work together to shape the future of testing. Back to you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Paz. And this wonderful product team actually brought to you most recently the release of Autonomous 2.2. And really the goal of this release was to provide you all with AI-driven testing that works and thinks like you. And I just want to give a quick overview before we dive into demos with Adam. But we really wanted to attack specific challenges or manual efforts that you all are making, whether it's feel like you're writing instructions and test steps by step, you're handcrafting data, you're doing a lot of context switching, you need parity between environments, or you need local testing. We addressed a number of these needs with a variety of features that you can see on the right side here. First of all, LLM test step generation. This feature is going to let you write what you want to test on a page in plain English. So the way you would speak it, the way you would normally write it, this feature is going to take that and translate it into individual test steps for you. So you can write one sentence that may be slightly complex. Autonomous will take that and break down that complexity into individual steps tailored to your app. Next, a lot of you probably have to handcraft data or you're using third-party tools to do this. Test data generation is now happening directly inside Autonomous. So you can describe exactly the data you need, whether it's a certain type of persona like a French fashion designer, or maybe you need a prime number over 1,000, for example. But Autonomous is going to pre-generate all this data and it's going to be realistic and inject it at runtime so that you can expand coverage and catch all of your edge cases. Next is the API Step Builder. While we already had API testing in Autonomous, the Step Builder now is allowing you to visually build, run, and debug your API calls directly in your test flow. So you can combine this within one test flow where you're maybe also running visual checks or assertions, and it's all happening in the same place. Now, last two are just slight enhancements to some features we've already had, like cross-environment comparisons. Really here, we've made it much more easy to see what's happening with the see what's happening with tunnels, for example. There's a lot of visibility now to all of your team members with cross-environment comparisons. We've made that much easier now to compare staging versus production, for example. And all that being said, I think it's about time we dive a little deeper, and I'm going to hand this off to Adam so that he can give you an overview of Autonomous and dive into some of these features.
So before we dive into the specific features in the latest release, I want to spend some time giving a quick overview of Autonomous for those of you in the audience that are seeing it for the first time. So Autonomous is an autonomous testing platform for websites and web applications. Although we are already working on native mobile application support, it will be available earlier next year. Autonomous is by far the most advanced test development environment in the industry today, and its goal is to make automation at scale accessible effortlessly to all. In order to do that, it aims to attain near complete test coverage for you, taking teams from far below 20% of automated test coverage, where most teams are today, to 80% test coverage or more, and also allow you to catch unexpected defects as part of your automation. It aims to lower the required skill set to succeed with automation at scale, from coding skills that are required today to basically quality skills, knowing how to test, and it doesn't require you to be an AI expert in any way. Autonomous aims to drastically reduce the human involvement in the test creation, authoring, and maintenance process, taking it from the total involvement that it requires today to basically requiring you to just look at findings and fill up the gaps where the AI can do the work for you. And of course, we don't compromise on the fundamentals of test automation. Autonomous test executions are fast, reliable, stable, and trustworthy, just like you expect from your hand-coded automated tests, only better. So, as a quick overview of Autonomous capabilities, first of all, Autonomous provides you with everything that you need to succeed with test automation at scale out of the box, from devices and browsers to run your tests on, to infrastructure, to test scheduling infrastructure. Of course, we have APIs and integrations with other tools in your DevOps toolchain. But if you don't have these in place, you can work with Autonomous and do everything that you need. If what you're testing is a website, a multi-page web application, or a CMS type of a system, then Autonomous can create a self-maintaining test suite for you. All you need to do is just provide it with the URL of your website. On every test run, Autonomous will call your website, report on any HTTP error that it encounters. Any page that can be loaded will be visually validated, which means that you know of any change that will be visible to your end user on any device, browser, or operating system. This covers new features, new content, bugs, and even if you didn't change anything and just a browser version updated and caused some incompatibility with your website, you will know about it. Autonomous creates a self-maintaining test suite, meaning that whenever new pages are added to your website, they will be automatically included in the test coverage. And if any pages are missing compared to a previous run, it will automatically get highlighted as an issue in your test results, so you know everything that happens with your website. For anything that is beyond the website, Autonomous allows you to also author custom test flows in nothing but plain English. You can either write those steps in unrestricted plain English, or you can record them within interactive browsers, and all your interactions will be added as plain English test steps. You don't need any coding skills or even element locator skills to succeed with scaling your automation using Autonomous. Everything you do with Autonomous is seamlessly assisted by an LLM. This includes automatic error connection, automatic reuse of existing tests and test modules. As Heather mentioned, new features such as test data generation and test step generation, and all of this happens seamlessly without you having to be a prompt engineer or an AI expert. You just use the product and everything that needs to happen happens under the hood. An important differentiator for Autonomous is that test executions do not involve any LLMs. They are completely fast and deterministic, just like your coded tests are. The way that we do it is that we use a proprietary deterministic language model that we developed in-house, and I'll elaborate more about this in later slides. But the important thing is that when test runs, there are no hallucinations and no delays. Whatever it is that you author, it gets executed exactly like you intended it to be. With Autonomous, you can implement any functional and data-driven tests that you can implement with any coded test framework like Playwright or Cypress. You can easily use variables, parameters, and net textual assertions. On top of that, you can easily do visual testing powered by Visual AI, which is our industry-leading computer vision technology. This is basically the core competency of Applitools. We have developed this technology for over a decade using billions of tests to refine and polish it and get it to the state where it is today. It allowed us to invent the type of testing known today as visual testing. And basically, there are huge advantages to using this technology, from drastically increasing test coverage while reducing the size of tests by 80% and greatly simplifying test authoring and maintenance. In addition to textual assertion and visual assertions, you can easily incorporate API testing as part of Autonomous, send HTTP requests in a variety of formats, from plain English to using a Postman-like UI. You can easily access responses, HTTP responses, verify them, or capture them and use them in subsequent test steps. So let's see how you can actually author tests in plain English interactively with Autonomous. So you can see here the Autonomous dashboard that is split into two parts. On the left-hand side, we have room to enter or specify your test steps in plain English. And every step that you add is automatically executed on an interactive embedded browsers that you have on the right-hand side. Right now, it is showing a contact us form. But you don't have to type all these steps manually. You can actually interact with the application under test within the interactive browser, and everything that you do get captured and written down in plain English on the left-hand side. So for example, I can type in my name, Adam Carmi, I can add my email, I can choose a contact reason, I can add a visual validation of the form and submit it. As you can see, everything that I just did by interacting with my application gets listed down as test steps in the English language. Now that I have my test specified, I can easily rerun it to make sure that it works as I expect. I can place breakpoints on steps and debug the test step by step, just like a developer can do with his code in his IDE. And I can also edit the instructions in free-form English so that if anything doesn't work well, I can simply adjust it on the fly and see it in action. Now, this approach to authoring tests has a lot of advantages over legacy tools. First of all, specifying tests in plain English is the most natural and easiest way to review and maintain. It's just like you would explain a developer how he should write his automated tests. Only this is English that is executable. Second, you don't need to be a developer to be able to author tests. You can just write it down in your own words. And as you can see, the tests don't use any element locators. Everything is described from the point of view of the user through UI interactions. And not only does this further lower the skill set required to operate autonomous, so you don't need to have any locator skills, but it also means that the tests are much more stable because they no longer tie to the way that the page is implemented. If a front-end developer now goes in and changes the page or refactors it or replaces an underlying library, your test will still work as long as the UI, as the instruction on the test are still consistent with the user experience using the product. So tests are much more stable. The last advantage, which is a very important one for those of you who have tried record and playback tools in the past and didn't succeed so much, is the fact that because the steps are described in English, you have the ability to correct recorder mistakes. So in case the recorder put in some steps that are wrong, that the AI does not understand and is incapable of executing, you can just edit the steps in your own words and explain to the AI how it should interact with the element and what it should do. This is opposed, you can contrast it with legacy record playback tools where basically if the recorder makes a mistake, you are stuck because there's nothing you can do but report a bug to the vendor and wait for it to be fixed. Another important advantage of Autonomous is that it is 100% SaaS. You actually don't need to install any local recorder and you don't need to install an extension on your browser. It means that you don't need to deal with upgrades, you don't need to deal with installation and upgrade failures, you don't need to ask permission from your IT person or CISO, a security officer, to install things. And it also eliminates the entire range of problems that occur when different members of the team or the CI itself have different versions of the product. With Autonomous, if you manage to record something and play it back, it would work exactly the same for everyone on the team and on the CI. And this really eliminates a range of issues that are very annoying and difficult to debug. So a lot of advantages within Autonomous. Another extremely important advantage that I mentioned in the overview is the fact that test execution, although there is no code here, is still stable, deterministic, and fast, just like coded test. The way that it works is that the source of truth in an autonomous test is actually the textual descriptions of steps. There is nothing else there. There is nothing under the hood. You can basically copy text in a notepad, paste it here, and it will work. okay? Every test step is read by our AI model and executed on the application under test. There is nothing in between. The reason everything is deterministic is because for test execution, we are using a deterministic language model that we fully control. It is not a statistical model, it is a deterministic model, and it allows us to execute your test description exactly the same way that they are written on every run, with stability, with speed, and without any hallucinations. Now, we are using LLMs extensively when you are authoring the test or maintaining the tests, when there is a human in the loop that can make sure that what the LLM is doing makes sense. But when the test is running, there are no LLMs involved. And this applies to all the features that we have in the product and will have in the future. Now, basically, you're getting the best of all worlds. On one hand, there is no code to write, no selectors to maintain or know how to read. On the other hand, you have the full capabilities and feature set of an LLM that is assisting with test authoring. But when tests execute, you get the reliability and precision of a programming language, the best of all worlds. And this brings us to the first feature that I want to focus on in the latest release, which is our enhanced API testing experience. As Heather mentioned in the beginning, this is a capability that existed in previous versions of Autonomous, but we have done major improvements to it based on feedback that we got from our users. Generally, there are a lot of reasons to initiate HTTP requests as part of your test. It can be used to perform a custom authentication, to set up the state of the application under test before you're starting a test, to clean up at the end of the test, or just to verify the state of the backend, especially if you don't have a way to do it through the UI. Now, Autonomous allows you to initiate HTTP requests to your backend. You have full control on those requests, and it's super easy to do. What we've added in the latest release is adding a lot of flexibility in the way that you can express those requests. So you can use plain English to describe the request. You can paste just HTTP snippets and they will be executed. You can use curl commands if this is the tool that you like to use. But even if you are used to using a Postman, we actually build a UI request editor that is very, very similar to it. So it makes it super easy for any user that knows how to do API testing with a certain tool to do it right within Autonomous. So let's see this thing in action. So following up on our demo, after I filled out my contact us form and I posted it, I get a confirmation page that, thanks us for reaching out and provides us with a request ID that we can use to track the request, and we've stored it in a variable called request ID. Now what I would like to do as part of my test is to verify that the details that I entered in the form were actually stored correctly on the backend. And in order to do it, I need to call some endpoint on the backend to get that data. So the way that one of the ways that I can do it now is using the API request builder. I click a button to add that step. And we can see a Postman-like UI that allows me to choose the HTTP request verb. I can paste the URL of the endpoint, and I can add an ID parameter and access variables within the test, including the request ID. As soon as I add a step, it is executed, and I can see that it failed with an access denied error. This is because I did not provide an authentication header. I can easily add this header in the headers tab. And now when I update the step, it executes and passes. So super easy to do. Now, just like everything else with Autonomous, the source of truth is the plain English test descriptions. So although I edited my test in a UI builder, and I can reopen it and edit it if I want to change it, what we end up with in the test is a plain English description of this request. So send HTTP request to that URL with a certain header. And I can also edit this request directly in plain English. So for example, I can specify that the header is a secret, which will result with our access key being masked from this moment onwards. No one can see its value. I also have access to the API request and its response, the status code, the cookies, the headers, as well as the response body. In this case, it's a JSON object. And we can see the details that were posted as part of the test. We can see an email of Moshe@applitools.com and the name Moshe and the contact reason, etc. Now that I have this data, I can easily grab it and use it in my test. I can assert on it, I can capture the data and add it to variables, etc. Let's place an assertion on this object with a single click. I copy the assertion to the clipboard, I go back and I paste it as a subsequent command. Autonomous automatically splits it into multiple assertions, one assertion for each property of the object. We can see an assertion on the email, an assertion on the name, on the contact reason, and the other properties. And we can also see that Autonomous was smart enough to see that the test has parameters, email and name, and it used those to assert the values instead of the specific values that were there in the JSON response. So it is now super easy to incorporate API testing or send HTTP requests as part of your end-to-end tests in a variety of ways, and then capture the results, assert on them, capture them in variables, and use them in subsequent test steps, whether it is UI interactions or additional API requests. A very powerful feature. I mentioned before that everything that you do in Autonomous is assisted by an LLM. You just saw an example that I pasted a very complicated assertion. It was split into multiple assertions. But there are a lot of other things that the LLM does for us. For example, if I type Clark, the your name field, and Clark is a typo, the LLM will automatically correct it to click instead of bothering me with an error. Similarly, it will also indicate to me, of course, that it did that, so I'm not surprised. If my English is not my native tongue and I write cumbersome commands, it will automatically normalize them to start with a ver, with an action, so it will be more readable for my team. And even if I write my test in another language, the LLM will do its best to translate it back to English. So again, it's clear for everyone on the team. And if I'm trying to do something that there is already a test or a test module that does that, the LLM will automatically replace whatever it is that I try to do, like wipe out the form. It will actually call the corresponding test that already does that and clears up the form for us. So it encourages reuse. And it does a lot more things. Now, two very important capabilities that we added in the latest release is test data generation and test step generation, which Heather also mentioned, and let's look at it in action. So LLM-assisted test data generation is an extremely powerful feature that allows us to generate test data that is relevant to the contextual place in the test that I'm adding it, and I can use whatever description in the English language that I want to use. It's completely unbounded and not restricted, and I can describe data at any level of detail. I can describe simple scalar values, and I can describe intricate records, and I can basically do it any way I want. So, for example, given our contact us form, I may want to generate test data, random test data, for a famous 90s movie star. And I want to store it as name and email variables. So within a few seconds, the LLM will generate the data set for us, and it will define those variables for us. So I have a name variable that I can type in the name field, it's Tom Hanks, and I can now have an email variable that I can type in the email field, which is the email for Tom Hanks. And if I rerun this test, it now will use Keanu Reeves as the name and email. And on every run, it will come up with another famous 90s movie star, of course. Now, as I mentioned before, When the test is executing, no LLMs are involved. So what's really happening is that when I actually asked to generate the data, a data set was created and is being populated in the background by the LLM. When the test is running, whether interactively within a few seconds or later on when it's running through the CI, we are just picking out records from this data set. So the execution is super fast, okay? A very powerful feature that is almost everyone needs random test data generation. But even more exciting is allowing the LLM to write the test steps for us, which is basically the third way to author a test. I can either write down the test steps myself, I can record my interactions, or I can just write down my intent, which could be the entire test, and allow the LLM to build out those test steps for me. All I need to do is describe what I want to do, and it's not different from saying I want to click a button. So given our contact us form, if I say, fill out the form as the famous 90s movie star, the LLM will basically break it down, understand, come up with the name of details of a famous movie star. In this case, it's Tom Cruise, and fill out the email, the name and email and contact reason, etc., and will proceed. If, on the other hand, I would like to have a random movie star on every run, I can just specify it as the intent. So I can say fill out the form as a random famous 90s movie star. And then again, the LLM now will understand that it needs to provide a random movie star on every run. It will generate the data set, come up with the variable names, your name and email, and use them to fill out the form. In this case, we got Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is again a famous 90s movie star. Now, as easy as it seems here, there's so much going on under the hood. So first of all, we're using the best prompts and build them for you. You don't need to be a prompt engineer or an expert in AI. We pick out the best models to use. We're actually tailoring this prompt to the way that your application is built. We have a representation of the page. We make sure that the LLM writes steps that are specific to how your application is built right now. And we validate that whatever it is saying and trying to do is relevant to your application, so we prevent hallucination. Also, the fact that the LLM is generating English descriptions rather than test code and locators means that you are getting superior outcomes from the LLM because it does much better work with natural languages than with code. And the best thing is that it is all seamless. It doesn't matter to you whether you're trying to click a button or create an entire test. It's all the same experience, just writing down test steps. When LLM involvement is needed, it happens. If it's not needed, it does not happen. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to think about prompting. You're not changing modes. It's all built in as part of the experience. In fact, Autonomous was built from the ground up to use visual AI for visual testing and to utilize LLMs. It's not an add-on that was just thrown in there at the last minute. So I think it's pretty cool. I hope you also think that way. I'm super proud of the Applitools team, the product team, and the development team for doing such an awesome job, and also the great feedback that we got from you, our customers. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Heather to talk about what's coming next.
Thank you so much, Adam, for giving the great demos and explanations there. And like you said, so what's coming up next? We've had Autonomous 2.2 recently, so we're shifting our focus a little bit to the next release of Eyes, which will be 10.22, and it's coming pretty soon. We're really focusing on optimizing and elevating the developer experience with this release. We want to look at optimizing your workflows, improving traceability and triaging, and faster Storybook SDK setup so that you can all have increased efficiency and satisfaction. Apart from that, we're also looking at accelerating performance and efficiency with test execution, and particularly for component testing. which will help reduce your overall testing time and improve pipeline speed in general as well. Then moving on, we're looking at native visual testing in Storybook so that you can conduct your visual tests, review, and approve changes directly within Storybook so that you can reduce more of that context switching and enable more shift left testing as well. And then finally, with this release, there will be more collaboration with Figma. So we're wanting to bridge the gap between design and development by facilitating visual collaboration for faster feedback loops and ensuring visual consistency across teams. And we're going to be doing that by enhancing Figma plugin. So apart from Eyes 2022, we also have more exciting news coming up for Eyes, and that's that we're going to be releasing the Eyes MPC server. And this is going to allow you to set up visual testing with Eyes and ultrafast grid through chat in the IDE of your choosing. But you'll also be able to migrate existing tests to visual tests by replacing assertions with visual AI checks instantly happening. And then also review test results and maintain baselines directly from your IDE with the LLM model of your choice as well. So that being said, moving on from Eyes, what's coming up in Autonomous, we have a couple major features in the works here as well. The first is that we're going to be having Autonomous for native mobile apps. So that's going to let you automatically create, maintain, and execute end-to-end tests now that are tailored specifically for native mobile applications. That way you can accelerate your mobile testing and enhance app quality across more devices. Then we just talked about the Eyes MCP server, and you saw a quick glimpse of that, but we are also going to be releasing an Autonomous MCP. And agents here are going to define high-level test intents for Autonomous to then translate into executable actions. So you'll be able to generate tests from test cases and BDD scenarios as an example. So that's a real quick look at what's coming down the line for us. And that being said, we do have a little bit of time for questions. This first one here, will this be able to handle the automation scenarios where conditional or time-based assertions come into play?
Buzz, do you want to take it?
Yes. So actually, we have a very nice, very cool time-based commands that can be added to the LLM assist at the left pane. So actually, you can ask to wait X number of seconds before moving to the next steps. To wait, for example, 1 minute, wait 5 seconds or such. You can also wait for a specific element to appear. And again, you can write it in a natural language. You can wait up to X seconds for a specific element to appear, up to X minutes for a different element to disappear and such. So actually, we have many time-based commands and assertions that you can use as part of our tests.
Exactly. And I think the second part of that, conditional, it sounds like that is in the books for us too in the future. And all right, we'll move to our next question here. Can you explain how your deterministic LLM approach works and what makes it different from other AI-based test generation tools?
Yes, I can. So first of all, if you look at the majority of, okay, so if we look at what is available in the testing space in general when it comes to the new Gen AI technology, we can look at 3 different approaches. The first approach is that we have legacy tools that have been around way before LLMs were invented. And then the vendors added a prompt to them, and they can check the marketing box of doing AI. And basically, the tools are the same with some prompting on the side, so it's a different mode, but the overall experience of generating tests and maintaining them is as it was before. if we put aside this this group of innovation, basically we see two other approaches. The first one is aimed at allowing developers to generate test code using LLMs. And the second one is using LLMs to directly drive tests. So first of all, using LLMs to generate code is something amazing and fantastic, and it's exciting, and we at Applitools use it as well to generate application code and features, and developers love it. However, when it comes to testing, it is not performing as well, especially because it's mostly effective when generating new tests. But when you need to maintain existing tests and tests that are already incorporated in your framework and your libraries, it doesn't work as well. In addition, there are locators that need to be maintained, and the LLMs are not so good at all at using locators. So a lot of the work there is less effective when it comes to code. Now, the alternative to generating code that runs deterministically is to have the LLM actually, you prompt it and you expect it to run the test according to the prompt. But the problem here is that the LLM is really not good at that. I mean, it can easily hallucinate, it can work around bugs, it just tries to fulfill the prompt that you gave it. It is very, very slow, sometimes taking 10 seconds between each test step. And it's, of course, very expensive. Again, I'm referring to an LLM using an MCP server like Selenium or Playwright to execute the test. It cannot do it by its own, of course, but then it needs a description of the page and every test step, and it's very expensive as well. So it's not like the fundamentals of test automation, which is stability and reliability and speed. We cannot compromise on this. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And because of that, either we generate code and basically we have more burden on the developers to maintain that code on their own, or we trust an LLM to run the test, and then it's non-deterministic and can hallucinate and is slow. So none of these approaches are optimal. What we are doing with Autonomous is, as I mentioned before, the best of all worlds. You don't need code to write your tests, so you don't need a developer to maintain the test. Of course, we have developer users building tests with Autonomous and maintaining them, and just spending less time on the testing and having more time on building the application and increasing velocity. But you don't need to deal with code or element locators with Autonomous, and the LLM can do the work for you to build the tests for you. But when the tests are executed, we use our own deterministic language model, which is basically like a compiler or an interpreter for a programming language, only that it understands English. And it understands English, and it can execute it just like a programming language. So it's kind of the best of all worlds that gives you the no-code experience and the precision and accuracy and reliability of a coded test when tests execute.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam, for that explanation. We'll move on to our next question here. How will it work with existing frameworks in place? Will it identify the gaps and create missing test cases? And with this question, I'm making an assumption that they're referring to the Eyes MCP.
So I'll try to take it. I'm not sure if it's talking about Eyes but I'll answer about the Autonomous, because I think that now that we have the LLM and the DLM capabilities, which are very unique, and you can do a lot with it. This is something like the basics. Now the sky is the limit, because now we can add many features on top of it, and you can, for example, give requirements of a specific feature in your application, and we will be able to actually create a test case, and from this to create the tests themselves based on the LLM and the DLM, which is our unique proprietary. So we can just create the best tests for any use case that you can dream on. So we still don't have all the capabilities now in place, but we are surely working on it. in order to expand and give much more capabilities.
So
Thank you so
I
much.
will add on top of Pavel's answer, and I will put it that way. When it comes to our MCP server for Eyes, basically, you are the prompt engineer, and you are bringing your own model with you. The model can utilize Eyes to add visual checkpoints, to review your test results, but you are with your hands on the wheel, and it's all up to you. If you provide your model with all the information required, the requirements, reference to your code base, etc., and you give it the correct instructions, then the answer is yes, you can use it to find gaps, to fill them out, but it requires your expertise. This is actually an example of one of the many features that we are building into Autonomous as part of the future releases. And the way that we will do it there is that you won't have to be the expert. All you need to do is just ask for it, and we will take care of everything under the hood and also verify the responses. So this is the difference between an MCP server that allows you access to the product, but you are still the prompt engineer, and Autonomous, which does everything for you, and you don't need to think about it.
And thank you again for joining us for our first Platform Pulse. We hope to gave you a clearer picture of where we're headed, from what's new in Autonomous 2.2 to what's coming next in Eyes and beyond. And at Applitools, we're always building an AI native testing platform that's really designed for teams of all skill levels. So whether you're scaling automation or just trying to reduce flakiness and maintenance, we've got you covered. If you're already using Applitools, now's a great time to reach out to your account team to explore new features and see how your current ROI stacks up. And if you're still evaluating, we'd love for you to try it out for yourself. And you can get started by clicking one of the links to schedule a meeting or visit applitools.info/8w1. And we hope to see you again soon.